Why am I a photographer? Well, it gives me the motivation to go see things I otherwise wouldn't be able to. It gives me the excuse to throw my things in a bag and buy a ticket to the next departing flight. Even if it's just for a day or two, that's all I need, really. That's all I want. So I take those few days, I go somewhere new, I live, and I do so off just what I can fit in my bag. My dad always said, pack half the clothes and twice the money. I guess the old man was right after all. What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. In today's video, we're taking a look at this edit I did for the Jakob Owens Epidemic sound edit contest. I found out about the project like the first day he dropped it, I think, and then I just downloaded all the assets and took a day whenever I had some free time. It took me about 9 or 10 hours, and then I just sat down and grinded and put this edit together. The concept is really to just take the footage at hand that was provided, which I believe was shot on Red, and it was condensed into some rather low quality codec, so we had to work with that whenever we were coloring and had to respect the quality that it was in and not push it too far, not break it, but be very careful with it. So I'll go over how I did that later. But the purpose of this edit contest is to just take these assets and then take a song from Epidemic Sound along with any sound effects you need, because they do offer both, which is super helpful. And then you get to just build a commercial based on whatever you see fit, and you get to use all that footage and a few photos that were provided. So in this video, I'm going to be covering the edit I made, the story that I wanted to put behind it with the footage I had at hand, even though that footage wasn't actually necessarily shot for this intent. And then I'll cover the voiceover, the sound design, the color grading. A couple things to note before we jump in. It is going to be a pretty widescreen video. That's because my monitor is an ultra wide, and I think that's the best way to edit, honestly. It just makes sense when you have a big timeline to be able to see everything kind of all at once. So the first thing we're going to be looking at in the breakdown of this edit is the sound design, because I think it's really important. It's a very crucial element in telling your story and creating a mood and environment, and then putting the audience in that environment. So first, I'm just going to do a playback without the voiceover, just going to be the music and then the sound design elements. And then next, I'm going to take out the music and we'll listen to it that way as well. So here, we're playing it back with just the music and the sound design. So as you see, I've added a lot of sound to this edit because whenever we started, there's no audio with the footage. So anything you hear, whether it's footsteps or birds or this helicopter sound I put in there, all of that is artificial, and most of it actually comes from Epidemic Sound's sound effect library. So with a subscription to Epidemic Sound, you also get all these awesome sound effects, and they're really easy to go in and search exactly what you need, and 99% of the time they're going to have just what you're looking for, with a lot of variations of that as well. So a few things I did with the sound here, some of it's just dropped in the timeline and left alone, and some sounds I actually went in and did a little bit of work with. Some I added effects to, added some reverb, I layered a few sounds, and then at the end here, whenever you see the Douchebags logo, which is the company I chose to kind of make this promotion for, you'll hear this kind of reverse glass, and I'll put it back for you real quick. And then if we solo that, so here's this little transition into the logo here. I'll put it back again. So that is actually just, I think it's actually just some glass breaking, and then I reversed it. Yeah, so I've got that clip reversed, and then if we play it forward, yeah, so that's all it was. Just some glass breaking, and then went in and reversed it, and then now we have this. So not much to it. And in its place, nice, love it. So that's about as complex as the work I did with the actual sound design went. A few clips, like I said, I reversed a few, and then I added some effects. Yeah, audio track 10. This one's actually a really heavy effect. I just added a whole lot of reverb and then a pitch shifter to manipulate some of the sounds I had, which in this case was it's kind of whoosh, which wasn't exactly what I was looking for. So just did a lot of manipulation. I think the original one sounded like this. Yeah, I just kind of wanted it to linger and be a little bit softer, so that's where that pitch shifter and the reverb came in. And also, it was just a little too strong, so brought that down, made it a little less distracting, and then it also comes up right here. Again, very subtle. just a little bit of a transition. You don't really want to overdo it when it comes to those transitionary sounds, and adding some reverb, bringing on the volume, that's a good way to do that. So let's go ahead and listen to it with just the sound design, no music, no voiceover. That's really what's going to help sell the effect that the audience is actually there. So let's play that back. So now let's kind of switch gears and let's talk about the voiceover. For this one, I was kind of just trying to figure out what story made sense here with the footage at hand. It made sense for me to kind of take on the role of the subject of the video, which in this case is Jakob Owens. So I wanted to create this persona of this, wildlife or just nature photographer, travel photographer that's constantly going, and maybe one that wants to kind of get away from the hustle and bustle of everyday life, get away from the clicks and like the notifications and all that, and somebody that's really down to earth and put us in the mindset that like photography is his escape. So that's what the motivation was behind writing the script, and I really just recorded it on this little blue snowball here and then added some effects like a dialogue processor and some EQ on the audio track in Fairlight, which is Resolve's built-in audio mixer, and we can hear how that sounds right now. It gives me the excuse to throw my things in a bag and buy a ticket to the next departing flight. Even if it's just for a day or two, that's all I need. Yeah, so you get the point. So that pretty much wraps up the sound design aspect of this edit. Let's jump into the actual cutting of this video and helping the story make sense. So obviously I wanted to start off with a drone shot. Let me go ahead and collapse this down a little bit because we don't need to see all the audio now. So it starts off with this drone shot here, and that's just to kind of put us in that environment. Like, where are we? We're in Hawaii here, and this establishing shot kind of sets the tone for everything else. And I actually am going to go ahead and mute this. So yeah, we start off in Hawaii, and then we see this quick driving clip kind of like putting us back on the ground, and then we see Jakob kind of taking a picture, which sort of is like a teaser to the rest of the video. And then we added in this quick little lens flare, which is actually like a really low resolution, but I just had it on hand, made it work. And that transitions to some of the photos that we're seeing are actually taken. And for there, I used some of the assets provided, which gave us this film border, the film frame, and then I put them all on a compound clip, layered it, and then just kind of zoomed in as they transitioned in cue with the clicking of the shutter that you hear here. Well, let me enable the audio. Gives me the motivation to go see things. Go ahead and mute this voiceover again so we can hear those clicks. It's not only that it's the shutter clicks are in the sync with the photos changing, all of that is also in sync with the music, so it's all timed properly. It's the little things. And moving on. Oh yeah, also everything I'm playing back right now, there's no color on it just because I had to do a lot of noise reduction and added grain. But regardless, all of this is just the flat footage as it was provided. None of it has the actual grade on it applied, because we'll be getting to that in just a second. So moving through the edit, we start to see the bag being introduced, I think at 7 seconds in, maybe earlier, I don't know, wherever this is. So yeah, 5 seconds in, we're seeing the bag introduced, and now we have an idea of like what this whole video is about, who's the subject, what the subject loves doing. That's kind of also aided by the voiceover. So moving on, we see the backpack withstanding the elements, some of the ways you can use this, the versatility of the bag. So then we see more like environmental elements, kind of just to put us in that world again. The sound design helps with that as well. Kind of a fun clip there, just doing whatever it takes to get the shot. More of it in the elements, just being used, all the versatility. And then it all wraps up with the logo. I'm a big fan of promoting things in a subtle way, like telling a story, creating this environment and this really just this world that the audience can live in, and they don't really know they're being sold to until the end. Then it's like, hook, gotcha. So Douchebags is the brand here. It's a funny name, but like, check out their stuff on Instagram. I love them. Everything they put out just is awesome. Their aesthetic on Instagram is unbelievable. By far the best I've seen from any brand, and their products are excellent. So that's that for the footage. Again, to recap, this is actually more simple than the sound design. I didn't spend near as much time working on the footage part of this, the actual edit, the video edit, as I did on the audio, the sound design. But let's go ahead and look at some of the little things that I added in to give it another layer of, just to give this edit some spice. So you keep seeing these film burns, and they're subtle, but they just kind of help transition from one thing to the next. Adds a little bit of flair to it. Scrolling through, there's not much else that happens. Most of those are just straight cuts. And then we have this viewfinder overlay that I got from, I want to say it was Invado Elements, because I have a subscription there. And then again, on top of that, we see right here, we have, again, the overlays, the lens flare, whatever. And then it transitions from one to the next, this flash. And there's a little bit of a, like a whoosh there. And then some helicopter sounds coming in on this shot, which I also sped up and added a keyframe zoom in. And then same thing with this shot. We have this one tracking in, zooming in. Again, we start to see that lens flare element. And then lastly, the backpack finally like closing and then being like, bam, douchebags. So this shot right here, let me see, disable this. This is the shot from the beginning when I watched through all the footage. I knew this was gonna be the one I closed on because I could sense like, boom, like a hit, and then bam, there's the logo. After seeing the bag and kind of knowing what it's capable of, I just knew that was how I wanted to end it from the very beginning. And again, that's what I did to start this whole process off, was just take all the raw footage, analyze it, see what I could pull from, see what I wanted to use, see what I didn't really want to use, and just start building out from there. I had a lot of gaps as I was going through editing, but that's where I kind of bounce back and forth sometimes when I'm editing. So that's what I did. I went piece by piece. I started piecing together the edit with elements I knew I wanted first, just laying the bare bones of the edit, structuring it out. And then when I had the idea for the voiceover, that really helped pull it together. I actually recorded the voiceover and then put a rough cut of it in that I could just use while I'm piecing it together and see what footage needed to fill certain gaps based on what's being said at that time. And then afterwards, that was when the sound design came in, and that was what took most of my time. I did the grade in probably like an hour, so it wasn't very complex. And we'll pick this shot since we're already on it. If we look at this one and disable that bypass, there's a lot of color and a lot of push there, but I mean, it's not super heavy. So I guess with that being said, let's go ahead and hop into the color aspect of it, and let's see what took place. So a lot of the grade is almost just duplicated and sent across the entire project, with the exception of the drone clips. There's not a whole lot to it. Let's go ahead and pick a hero shot here. I think this will be a good one to demonstrate with. So we'll just disable all of this. And I didn't use every single node you see here. This is just kind of one of my node trees that I tend to use most time when working on projects. So we'll go through this. I'm just gonna cover the things I actually used. I'm not gonna go through any nodes I didn't use. So hopefully that'll keep it simple and keep it easy to understand. So I'm gonna go in order of the actual grading process, not in the order of the nodes here themselves. So usually I start off in my contrast node. However, this one, it's not in a flat image. They didn't export it for the contest in log3g10, that's the flavor it comes in usually. So the primaries is where I did the balancing there. I just dropped the shadows, raised the highlights, and add a little bit of contrast using the primary wheels. But as you see in the scopes down here, that kind of clipped a little bit of the highlights. So I just recovered that with the highlights and actually took it really far because it was the look I was going for. I really wanted to bring those highlights way down and let them sit pretty low, which gave it a little bit more of a filmic and cinematic look. Then in the pop node, I just kind of brought the highlights up a little bit. Then in the hue versus, I think I just did a little bit of primary wheels, and let's see if I did, some more saturation to bring out the blues and the greens, because that's a heavy part of our palette in this video. So up next, I was working on the primaries, added a little bit more warmth to the image and a little bit of, I guess it's sort of green, yellow green into the highlights. And then log wheels where I balanced it out, added more blue into the shadows and brought those shadows down some more. Then the color warp, this one I was really just experimenting with it because when I was editing this, Resolve 17 had just come out, so I pushed and pulled a little bit here, not too much. I didn't go in and do a whole bunch of crazy effects, but you can see what it did there. And if I pull up the vector scope, we'll really get to see how this made an effect on the overall image. It kind of pushed everything to the center, kind of squeezed it along a center line, and gave us that color contrast, that complementary color effect there. And then I added a power window to pop our subject out, and then an outside node to help focus the eyes and focus the attention on him. Nothing else here. And let's see, one more global adjustment. This one I was just bringing the midtones up a little bit. And then lastly, we had some sharpening, and that is literally it. And then also that noise reduction is a shared node. So if I turn it off in one clip, it's going to turn it off in all the other clips. Same thing if I turn it back on, which just makes the whole process a lot easier and lets me just edit smoothly without having to worry about that slowing things down. And then when I'm ready to implement it, I only have to click it on in one node. Takes care of the rest. So that's the gist of the look there. If we look at this clip, for example, there's a few steps really I just removed. And this clip in particular was a little bit more intense because, let's see, the original image was pretty flat, so it took a lot of saturation to pull it out. For the most part, everything looks about the same, just with a few adjustments in my primary wheels that were a little bit different than the footage from the red, obviously. And then we have the hero and the outside node, again, just to accent this light here, this heavenly beam that was just coming in, hitting the surface of the water. If I disable these two, you can see it really just kind of enhanced that and accentuated how strong that was, which I think it added a nice little effect, made it seem even more intense. And then we also have that shadow being added here in the left. And then I worked a little bit with the sky just to kind of bring it down and help it match everything else in the image. We'll go ahead and look at one more clip, because this first shot here was a little bit different than some of the others. So if we take this one from the beginning, the flat image, not a lot going on. It's not very exciting, but what we did was push a lot of green into the midtones, a lot of the green that's already there, just really pushed that and made it a little bit more blue. And then to accentuate that even more, added a lot more blue into the shadows using the log wheels here. And you can see just the effect that added. And then also did that a little bit with the primaries. You can see it added more gold into the highlights there. Really, this was a really fun shot to work with, and this was kind of the one I used as my hero shot for the drone footage, and then applied this to the other shots. And then there was a couple lens flares that I also took the hue and shifted it just to make it look exactly how I wanted it, but I mean, really that's all it is just a hue shift on that. But all in all, not a whole lot there. So that wraps it up. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you learned something from this tutorial. I really enjoyed doing this more all-encompassing breakdown of an edit versus just a color grading tutorial, because obviously I do a lot more than just coloring. I direct, I shoot, I edit, and I really just enjoy having my hands on every aspect of a project. It's very satisfying, very fulfilling. Hopefully you guys liked the tutorial. Hopefully you learned something about my process. And if you're wondering, I do not always edit everything in Resolve. I do sometimes use Premiere Pro as well. There's just a few things that it's hard for me to fully let go of. So if you enjoyed this, please let me know in the comments. Be sure to subscribe, because I think the next video coming out is going to be how to create unique looks, and I'll be revealing a couple of my secrets on how to do just that, as well as some awesome resources to help you. So again, thanks so much for watching. I'll see you guys in the next one.